Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Chronicle podcast. Shout out to all you listeners out there and watchers of this video, though. If you're watching this, thank you for watching on the YouTube channel. It means a lot. I have with me today, David Nakayama is on the show. I'm your guys' host, so Dakota Morgan, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. For anybody podcast, animal caretaker, dinosaur enthusiast, and all this shit like that. We are here today. I'm going to move the mic a little bit closer. Professional, as always, here on the channel. David's here on the show. We talk all sorts of stuff of, getting out of, we got deep, to say the least here. We got pretty deep. So we talk about, self-love of yourself here, getting out of the appreciation of yourself. We talk about a lot. Like we talk about creative teams, artists getting credit that they need to do. We talk about a lot of stuff here. Hawaii too. We talk about that as well. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm trying to word it carefully here. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel for new episodes, or subscribe to wherever you guys listen to podcasts to listen to us on the road. It helps us out greatly as well. Leave a like on the video, comments, down below an episode you loved or anything as well too. Helps us out. Social media is in the description box. If you want to follow me live, Raw and Uncut, for when I play video games, Twitch, CodaRex97. Instagram is at Dakota_Morgan97. And Twitter is X is at DakotaMorgan3. I'm just trying not to spoil anything for you guys on this episode, but it's a really good one. So, of course, folks, let me stop rambling here. And let's get into my talk.
And I'm trying to start this video.
Ooh.
Let's see. There I am.
Hey, there you are. Pleasure to see you.
Hello. Hey, you too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining me on the show, David. It's an honor to have you here because you've definitely, it seems like, been a busy little bee recently.
I try.
Yeah.
I waited a long time to get my foot in the door at places like DC, almost 30 years, sadly. But now that I have the opportunity, I'm not going to say no. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah, that is fair. By the way, that right sentence alone should tell people don't give up on what you want to do. Like that alone should tell people. Right. Yeah.
Right.
You would think. Now, you seem like you're celebrating X-Men 97. You got an X-Men shirt on for those who are listening. They don't really see. So,
can we see that?
Yeah, I did. I saw a little bit of the X-Men logo. I mean, it's, if you know it, you can see just a little bit of it. And you're like, oh, X-Men.
And that shows, I think there's a little bit of the E showing. That was enough for you to tell. Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
It's almost like I'm a nerd for this shit. Who would have thought? Man. But yeah, so you leading off with here, you said you've waited 30 years. You've been working on it to try to get a DC, but you've been an artist for 30 years. So, I mean, I don't want to age you at all. I don't want to do that. That's kind of rude sometimes. But
I'm 45 now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was 13, I literally right about that time, 92, 91, something like that, I was all in on comics, the Jim Lee X-Men stuff. I don't know if we're recording already, but
yes, yeah.
Okay, good. I was all in when I saw that Jim Lee X-Men stuff. I, instantly went from just being a kid who was interested in art to loving comics and wanting to do art for a living. I just wanted to be Jim Lee someday, right?
Yeah.
And I got a lot of people, and I got an in with Marvel earlier, in my career, and did a lot of stuff with them. Did a side trip through video games for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Came back and did covers about 5 years through that. So there's an overlap in there. But DC didn't happen for me until about 2 or 3 years ago now. Oh, so if you do the math, it comes out to be about 30 years between the moment I decided I wanted to do that stuff and when I actually did.
A whole lot of work and lots of nights where you're like, why am I doing this? What the hell am I doing? Is it worth it in the end? But honestly, yeah, it's worth it. I think that's what a lot of people should get. I've been doing the show for 5 years, and people I've talked to, even actors and whatnot too, David Harbour, who played Martian Manhunter and Supergirl. I talked to him a while back, a couple years ago now, and he was saying he wanted to give up at a certain point too, but he stuck it out, and look where he's at now. He's done video game stuff as well too, and it seems everybody eventually, if you do comics long enough, it feels like you have a somewhat of a stint in video games, whether you're a writer or an artist, whatever it is. It feels like it eventually goes to games.
It's either that or TV. I was just watching Avatar last night, and I recognized the writer of the episode as a comic book person, Joshua Hill Fielkov.
Oh
who
yeah.
I swear I know that that guy has written comics. I have some of those comics. I was like,
Yeah.
I know that name.
Yeah.
So there's some flow between the two. And me as a freelancer, I like to participate in all of it if I can. So
Mm.
like tomorrow, coincidentally, Contra comes out, our new Contra video game I did the key art for. So I love to play in video games, toys, whatever other stuff I can get to
Mhm.
beside comics. It's all fun. It's all kind of a matrix of cool things.
Yeah, and it's when you do what is your childhood. Like I think when you work in stuff that ties into your childhood, it hits different. It's that job where you're like, I can wake up every day happy with this. Like, yeah, there's going to be stressful moments, and you're going to be like hustling and all that. But like, I mean, there's a certain point when you see your thing come to life, and it's tied in. Like recently, for me, see my books come to life. That seeing that be a thing. That's something you can't get anywhere else except the creative field. Like this feeling, this dopamine hit somewhere in the brain, it activates it. Like we're the cavemen that drew on the walls for the first time. We're just like, look
Accurate.
at
Yeah,
this, and now we're doing it now.
totally
But
feel that same.
yeah, it's a oh
I would add that I did not get that feeling when I was actively working in video games because
really.
it's such a big team and you're such a small part of it
Mhm.
overall that when it comes out, I had an odd experience where, I had social media, right? And I would put out a sketch of Spider-Man and get, let's say 100 likes, right?
Yeah.
If I put out, after slaving away on a video game for 2 or 3 years, you would post, your own art of the game that you art directed and say, I made this and get a tenth of the likes, and people just cannot
Mm,
get their head around the fact that it's a person making it, right? They
yeah.
think it's a video game, therefore it's from a company. A company somehow made it. It's just a different experience. Like if I put out a cover, people can get their head around the fact that I made it, that one person made it, but not with the video game. They just see it as an advertisement or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's
It's very
true.
strange.
Yeah, they think it just pops out like some like I mean, current AI thing made it, but like they're thinking like, oh, it's just a thing because maybe it's because it's hard for people to wrap their brains around. And this is coming from, I mean, I've been playing video games since I've been a little kid, right? And so it's almost 30 years. So we're at a point here with it, and I think it's what it is because there's so many people there that they just can't wrap their head around. Oh, it's a billion people that do it. I can't thank everybody here. So it's a company like it's just Microsoft, and they rarely give names on there either. That's a part about it too. You rarely
Yeah.
see a writer's name on the case. I would love that, or an artist, either way too. Like who made the cover art? Like unless it's in there in really tiny like lawyer writing, I've never seen.
No, they did. I think they go out of their way to not say. So,
Yeah,
like, if you liked the God of War games, but you don't know who Raf Grassetti is, that's weird to me. But because like that's the guy who kind of did it. This
mm-hmm.
brilliant 3D artist is responsible for the look of that stuff. If you like the look of that stuff, why are we not familiar with that person? Or
Exactly.
likewise, sometimes it does happen. Like Hideo Kojima
Mm-hmm.
gets credit for his games personally, possibly too much credit because obviously a lot of talented people work with him,
Yeah,
and we don't know any of them.
yeah.
But you get my point. Like it's an odd thing where in comics we're very familiar with who the writers are and who the artists are, and they get credit,
Mm-hmm.
an artist actually signs the cover. That's comics, but that doesn't exist in most other fields.
No, no. And I used to run a film podcast back in the day. And also, I worked in the film industry for many years. And I've met a lot of VFX artists too. And a lot of them are just like, we do our job, we get paid, we love it, but we never get credit. That's why, like, I always love it if, like, there's an Oscar thing or, like, there's some award, like, best VFX. I'm like, great. Because these guys deserve,
Serious.
like, put a name down, like, something like that. Because they're always, what was it? There was one guy I interviewed. He worked on Transformers, and he was just like, I felt like the guy secretly working in the closet and then just like sliding a note underneath the door. And he's like, "Here you go, master." And, like that was not on record. He did not want to do that. I'm not gonna say who it is, but like he was definitely like, I feel like that guy just like every now and then I turn something in, I come out from the darkness like Smeagol looking thing. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, that's how they kind of treat us. I'm like, oh damn.
There's so many talented, creative people that no one really knows about. And having done that stint in video games,
Mhm.
I would work with a team of 3D artists or a team of animators and just be blown away by what they were doing and adding to the game. Each of them individually and as a team. And it wasn't me. I'm not sitting there taking credit for the animation of the
No,
game
no,
I
no,
worked on.
yeah.
It was amazing to me.
Yeah, it's a teamwork thing. I think, and that's why I think a lot of people, we were just saying with the games, like a lot of creative stuff, comics, movies, film, video games, all of it, hell, even making toys. It's a teamwork activity here. And it's not just like one person. Like every now and then you see, Todd McFarlane, he puts out like a thing like, oh, the artist did this for a toy thing, but not as much. But you still see a thing there of it. And I think a lot of people just need to recognize this is a teamwork activity. Like even when doing a podcast, that takes team. Like there's multiple people that do this stuff here, and like it's a whole
Yeah.
thing. And it's even my wife has contributed to that because she's like, I gotta like you're taking time out of the day. I'm like, damn it. She's like, okay, here you go, you do that. It's a whole thing. But um, it's definitely this crazy thing about it these days. But they were kind of wondering here though. Now, you've been doing a business for a long time. You said you were starting 13, 14. What was that thing that
Well,
inspired
that
you?
was just wanting to start,
Oh,
right? Like I didn't get a professional start until, unless you're Joe Madureira, who I understand started at like 16. He's
yeah,
a one in a
man.
million,
But
like
like,
genius level.
what started it though?
Yeah,
Like,
when I actually started was sometime in the mid 2000s. So,
okay,
I've only been doing it since then, but definitely 13-year-old me was 100% and I was dedicated to it. It
yeah.
was just how many years would it take for me to get the skills to be invited,
And actually be like, this is good enough, I swear. Like it's that whole like on that hustling thing. Like this is a high school sketch I did on my assignment notebook. Does this count? And they're like, well, not yet.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
never actually had that problem. I had the opposite problem where I was really down on my own stuff and I was kind of
Really?
I knew it was bad when it was bad and I would probably just hide it,
Yeah.
more than I'd be resistant to show anyone when I probably
Yeah.
should have.
You're your own worst critic sort of thing, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna just take this away. Meanwhile, everyone's like, did you know he did really good artwork? And it's like, oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man.
I've gotten to the point in my career where I finally kind of feel some happiness and joy in the
Oh
art that comes out, but
Jesus.
it took a long time.
That,
Like for
that
a
took
long time,
30
I'd put something
years.
out and I'd just be nervous about
Oh,
it.
it only took that
It,
30.
I Pretty much. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Man, I mean, well, I'm glad you're at a good point now, though, that you actually feel the happiness with your art and you're actually appreciative of it, though.
I'm getting there. I can, I
Ye-
can, I can be proud of something when it comes out now in a way
Mhm.
that I couldn't have maybe 5 years ago. I was still like imposter syndrome for a long time.
Yeah.
I never want to get a big head about anything I accomplish. I definitely don't want to be there, and I don't think I ever will because I spent so many years in the trenches that it would be impossible to forget that.
Yeah.
But at least I can be proud of something when it comes out now.
You're a very humble man. I got to put that out there, though. You're a very humble creator. I gotta say.
Thank you.
Yeah, like, oh, you very simple. Like, what helped you conquer the imposter syndrome, though, for artists? Because there's a lot of artists there who are facing that even currently today. Because they're like, I have so much competition going on. Like, is mine good enough? Like, am I good enough? Like, a little inspiration out there, man. What can you put out there just for future artists?
I think one thing that helped me get over it was having to be, when you're an artist, in order to get your name out there, you
Mhm.
kind of have to do some advertising, right? And these days, that means posting on social media and sharing your stuff
Mhm.
and kind of putting on your marketing hat when you do it.
Yeah.
So, like when I go on Instagram, I have to write text that says why this piece is cool and why you should want it and why you should care. And so, I have to be my own hype person in a way, if I'm doing social media, and then I think because of that, having to be the front person pushing this stuff and trying to build the brand myself, I I started feeling more comfortable about actually putting it out there. And what I see
Mhm.
is a lot of great artists never hyping their own stuff. Very
Mhm.
few artists are actually out there very often, saying, "Hey, here's my new piece. I'm really excited about it."
Yeah.
That's really rare. Um, and I wonder why. I mean, to some extent. On the other hand,
Yeah.
the artist part of me totally understands the be quiet in the corner part of being an artist,
Yeah.
and that person not wanting to be too out there in the public. But man, if you're gonna get any kind of visibility, who else is gonna do it but you? You got to be out
Mm.
there and tell people about your stuff.
I like that. That's honestly perfect because like you're absolutely right. You have to be your best hype man. Like you have to be able to be. If you're not hyped about it, who will be? You know, like it's a thing there. Like if I mean, we got plenty of people who say your stuff's great. I mean, I feel like my wife's obligated to say my stuff's great, but you know, it's a whole thing there. And if you're not hyping yourself up, yeah. But you get it though. I mean, as a writer, I mean, it's definitely a thing. As an artist, I can't. I mean, I don't do the magic of art, but as an artist, I can imagine that too. It's you gotta have that hype behind yourself. I like that. I like that. You can make that a
Yeah,
T-shirt.
man. I will do that.
Yes,
As a
make the money.
writer, I've always wondered about
Hmm.
this exact problem from a writer's point of view, because when you're an artist, you can put a picture out there and it says a lot. You can judge very quickly whether art is good to your
Hmm.
eye, right? But with writing, someone's at least got to devote some time to reading it before they can decide whether it's good. So
Yeah.
if you're a young writer, how do you hype yourself? I have never understood that process.
It's I'll give you some behind the scenes. It's a lot of giving your stuff to people, say like close friends, and then also like family members. It's a little bit of that, and then you from there you give it to other people as well too. Um, and then you ask, and you have to sit down. Like the big thing is you have to sit down with that person that you give your stuff to and say, hey, what I need honest feedback. Like you can't lie to me because it's me. You have to tell me. And it's tough. Like, and so some people are like, I don't have time to read it or whatever the hell. And it's really tough to do that. And sometimes there's writers who I know who pay artists to get their stuff made. So like
Hmm.
so they kind of, even though like nothing may come of it. Like it's why I see a lot of
Right.
writers do concept art is because they're like, I want to at least see what this looks like. So a lot of writers I know will just pay for concept artists, and they're like, here's $200 or here's however much you're asking for. Can I see what this looks like? Or a sketch or something like that too. And that's kind of where it's a little bit difficult. Like, especially people, you see it online all the time of like, how do you hustle for comics, especially too? Like, how do you get that going? How do you be here's a binder like this thick, and here's a great story for you. I have this wonderful thing. Do you have any artwork? No. Well, it's a pleasure doing business. I'm like, well, what the hell? Come on, two sentences, please.
Yeah.
And I think
I
it's
think
all.
it makes me think of Brian Bendis, like he is known as a writer now, but he got started by being his own writer artist.
Yeah.
He got his stories out there by just biting the bullet and drawing it himself, darn it,
Yes,
like
yeah. That's the other option you can do too. Yeah, I'm not that talented. I'm not that I'm not that talented at all. I was getting hiccups and laughing about it. Yeah, I'm not that talented to do both. So it's a lot of like Photoshop, I guess one could say in some spots, for like a quick little sketch. But you're right, Bendis did it. He was a smart man. That's why he became Bendis. But it's a lot of that. It is a little bit of stress on there. I mean, you guys like the amount of, it's equal in the amount of stress, because I don't want to say writers have more. It's because it's like the amount of stress you guys have to make sure your stuff looks good. But then like the writer is the equal amount of like what a writer has to do for the stuff. So it's about even for between writers and artists for like the amount of stress and hustling. It's crazy
hmm,
though. It's still crazy. It's still a large amount, but it's tough, I think. But every writer has their avenues of it. Some put it out online, to be honest with you. There's people who go to Reddit secretly and do it. I've heard of that.
mhm,
And they're like, here's a
mm.
script, or they leak it out. They do the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool thing. They're like, just put a few scenes out there from a thing. We'll see what people think about it.
It worked for him.
Yeah, worked for him in a lot of ways. Uh, but yeah, that's how writers kind of do it. And it's still fun though. I think you can still say the same as being an artist. Like it's still fun to do. Like people look upon it, like people who aren't a creative, they look at our hustling, they look at the stress, the nights where we're staying up late, weird scheduling, and I'm like, why do you do it? I'm like, well, because it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of professional artists. Sometimes I'm sitting at a comic show, and a logical question to ask your neighbor is like, when did you know you want to be an artist? How'd you get
Mm,
started? And I keep hearing the same story over and over, which is that they just had it in their blood. They knew it early on. They had to do it. It was a compulsion. It was a requirement. They were going to be creative in some way, regardless, and they knew it
yeah.
instantly.
Yeah.
So I feel like that, the creative spirit is just a thing that you're wired for or you're not.
Yeah.
And people, have to pursue it if they are wired for it.
It's true. Yeah, you'll always do something. Like, and there's people who I know who have been retired and they don't do anything creative anymore, but they still do a business. And they're like, "Oh, I'm doing this." And I'm like, "Well, what are you doing for your promo?" They're like, "Oh, I make the artwork for it." There you go. You're still doing it. Don't say you're not. You're still doing something like that. And you're right. There's always gonna be something doing it. Like I don't work in film anymore, but I still write. Still doing comics. We do a podcast, and even if you don't make money from it, you still do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a requirement, and I have two kiddos, and one is just not into the creative stuff at all.
Mm.
He likes aircraft and military things, and that's
Oh,
great. More power to him. But I more than ever, I understand that people are just wired differently.
yeah, yeah. It's weird. It's like whether I mean therapists can deep dive and say this one incident did it, but maybe that's the case. But yeah, I think if people are just wired different. Like everyone's wired in different things. So like, what makes them happy? What makes them different and stuff like that. But it's what makes us kind of great too. We
Very
got
much so.
really deep
Yeah.
on this podcast.
I know. I was like, this is the creative talk shop conversation right here. Usually, and I'm glad for it, to be honest, because usually sometimes I find that in podcasts I'm asked the same sorts of questions.
Mm.
So I've gotten really good about answering like, where'd you go to school?
Oh,
Like that
that
kind of
thing,
thing.
yeah.
Who are
Yeah.
your favorites? Like I have a great answer for those questions because I've done it so many times. But it's nice to talk about different things, and the philosophy about creativity is
Yeah.
not a common question. So good to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the point of this show. Is this show is meant to have conversations. I hate doing the time interview questions, like you were saying, like what happened here, what was the first, like no, 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 no. Let's just have a talk. Let's just talk. Hey, there's been people who've been on this show while barbecuing burgers. I shit you not. It
That's
is.
amazing.
They're just like, you mind if I'm cooking? No, not at all. And I was eating something too. I had like some pizza rolls with me, and I'm like, you mind if I eat pizza rolls? And we had a whole talk. And this was like some big wig at DC. And we just had like this whole talk of just doing that. I'm like, oh, this is great. And we had a good time. And like we keep in contact too. And it's great.
That's amazing.
Oh man. Yeah, you just get fun with it. You have the same stuff everywhere. But I do have to ask you something, and this is not a time
Please.
interview question thing, but this is a weird thing.
Yeah.
You currently live in, if you don't mind saying, you currently live on an island, I guess we could say.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. Do you wish to say where, or because
Yeah, sure. It's I think I've said it many times, but I live in Hawaii. I live in Honolulu, born and raised.
hey,
And after that jaunt in video games, which required living in California, we moved right back here.
oh
Because
yeah,
if you're gonna if you're gonna pay those high prices of living in a city, you may as well live in Hawaii, right? It's about the same, and
oh
close to family, so it made a lot of sense for us to just move back home.
nice. The wife and I are looking at moving to Hawaii. That's like one of our things that we want to do because we want to move a
Oh,
few places before we, eventually croak. So we're like,
yeah,
what Hawaii, like I had a friend of mine move from Chicago because I'm from Illinois originally. I may be in Arizona, but almost 20
yeah.
years in Illinois. And so we moved here and
Uh-huh.
Hawaii, the wife and I have been thinking like Hawaii seems like a place. Is it true? Like you
It
moved
it
back
is
and obviously.
Yeah, no, it's really the only place I feel truly at home. Like I was fine
Hmm,
in California, but the moment we moved back, I kind of just felt myself kind of relaxing and letting out a deep breath and feeling like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be.
okay.
Now, for Hawaii is wonderful. It is like being in another country because it's unique in some ways because it has its own, you know, language,
Mhm.
music, food. There's the whole Hawaii culture there, the hula and all this stuff that's unique to here.
Yeah.
It is absolutely part of the United States, but there's so much unique about it. In many ways, you feel like you're in another country. And that can be good or bad. Like when I go to Japan, I get that feeling like that is truly a different society, different from anywhere you'd be in the mainland US. And I
Mhm.
love that. And I feel that in Hawaii too. Now, some people can acclimate to it really well, and they love what's novel and fun and interesting about it. And some people like this is a culture shock. I cannot get my head around this.
Yeah.
This island is too small. Get me out of here. I
Okay.
find like when I lived in California, if you really thought about it, we didn't get that far from home. Like you'd only go an hour or two away from home or beyond that, rarely, right? So in
Yeah.
Hawaii, this island, you can circumnavigate the whole thing in maybe 6 to 8 hours, something like that. That's how big the island is. So for me, I don't really get much farther away from home than I did even in California. Sure,
I
I can't
like
hop and go cross country, but
yeah.
what's different about being on this island? I don't get any farther than I did before, and I can get to beaches now.
That's
So
true. That's true. And honestly, you're taking a flight no matter what these days because you're not paying for. I mean, you pay the same in gas prices or if you're driving, but most likely you're going to take a flight anyway if you're going somewhere. So either way, if you live in Hawaii, you're
probably
just paying a little bit extra for the flight, but you're still going. You're
right.
selling me.
So
You're really selling me. Okay. All right.
Mathematically, it doesn't seem that different from when I lived in California, but
No.
it's the culture. So if you can get your head around the culture, if you love the culture,
Mhm.
you know, you get the benefit of like, wow, they have really great Japanese food here. Wow, the 7-Elevens have the best bamboo CBA I've ever had. You know, like this
Mm,
kind of thing is really fun and unique.
I like
But
that.
then even within Hawaii, there's some differences. Like this is
Mm,
Oahu Island is where the bigger buildings, the more population, the
sure.
tourist center, like that's what's here, and I love it. But some people hate that, and they want to be on a very quiet, uninhabited experience
Mm,
like Kauai. You know, like there aren't that many people living on Kauai by comparison, and it's natural, natural beauty, that sort of thing. So there are these two Hawaiis,
yeah.
even within this one. So yeah, you got some choices.
I like it. And we're big on culture and we're big with nature too. Like we're big in like my wife's literally doing a hike right now up a mountain as we're doing this recording. And hopefully she's
Mm.
okay because it's really hot out tonight. But yeah, I was just realizing that it was actually like it's toasty, it's 80 degrees. But taking a look at that, she's fine. But we're big nature lovers and big culture people. So I like that a lot. And we like different cultures and whatnot too. Like it's I think she's going to
Well,
listen to
definitely worth
this.
visiting. You
Yeah.
guys should definitely come and
Yes.
visit. Yeah, this
Yes.
podcast brought to you by the Hawaii Board of Tourism.
If they pay me the amount of money they pay on those billboards, whoa,
Yeah,
we're good. Oh, I had to set for a while. They're like, what happened? He got a studio. Did you hear? He's not doing it in
like
his
I'll
home
watch for
office
that
anymore.
check in my mail.
Oh, the guy who lives in Hawaii doesn't get paid, but the one who lives in Arizona gets paid. That sounds about right, though. Oh, man.
On a comic book and Hawaii note,
Yeah.
one thing I just turned in today is a Usagi Yojimbo cover. My first ever Usagi Yojimbo cover. For real, yeah, I'm so psyched about it because
What?
Stan Sakai is such a legend. That series is so awesome, and he is such a legend, such a nice guy, and has roots in Hawaii. And I remember when I was a little kid, my mom randomly took me to the library one day because there was an art lesson,
Oh,
being given, and you know who was giving? It was Stan Sakai. He was
is it really?
just there
Oh,
at a public library teaching little kids how to draw,
what
and I
the?
happened to be there, and it was amazing, and I had no idea what that was, but years later I put that together and I realized, oh wait, that was Stan Sakai.
Oh,
Like, and so when I've seen them to get books signed, I'm like, I told him that story, and like that was sort of foundational for me and meaningful to me and helped get me into comics. So full circle, Drew and Usagi cover, pretty happy about it.
wow. You really made the full circle there. Look at you. 30 years later, you're happy about your work. You did a cover full circle. Like you're doing pretty good.
Not too bad. It's going
No.
pretty well this
Wow.
year.
It's a funny moment when you just realize this stuff. I mean, was he appreciative of it though? Was he kind of like, really? Like, was he really like happy about it? Or was he kind of like, whatever?
Well, I don't know. He's calm but super friendly.
Mm,
Like I don't get the impression that, he goes, wow, like he's not like a bold expression, explosively expressionistic guy.
yeah.
But man, he was so nice and friendly. And then when I told him that story, it seemed like he got a big smile,
Oh.
and he basically offered to do a little doodle in our
Oh.
in our book for us. So I think that was his way of showing some appreciation for
Oh.
for that. But I didn't even need that. I just wanted to tell him. My only goal was to give him that little piece of love.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. I mean, shoot, I don't. I'm looking at time. I don't want to take too much more of your time today. But that's an amazing story right there. Look, this has been a great TED talk. But you speaking of that, so you just turned it in. But like, is there anything you want to promote right now? Anything people should go check out to help support you and whatnot as we're near the end of the show?
Oh, thanks for asking. The thing I'm really excited about right now is I have two ongoing series that are just really working for me creatively. Like I've
Mhm.
I've now been on the Catwoman series on the main covers for gosh, almost like a year and a half now. So 16, 17 consecutive issues, which is a record for me. So
Yeah, cool.
you can tell I'm liking it,
Yeah,
having stuck it out this far. And these opportunities do not come around very often. Like most books, they'll go 5 issues and then they'll turn it over to something else. So
yeah.
16 consecutive issues and still going is a big deal to me. It's a rare one in that, when you do covers, you don't always know where it's going to land. Like, is it going to end up on a book that's awesome, or is it going to be on kind of a mid book? You don't really know
That's a
until
good
it comes out. But
point.
Catwoman,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't predict it. You have no idea. Oftentimes they won't even tell you what the book is like the title of it is necessarily. Things change.
Yeah.
But the contrast to that is Catwoman, because it's written by Jeannie Howard, and she is so, so good. She writes a great script. I've never liked the character of, Selena Kyle as much as reading this, and that was before I even started working on it. So it's just a thrill to work on that. So Catwoman. And then the other one is Thundercats, which goes right to my 80s nostalgia. I just turned in the 5th cover for that, and that's Declan Shalvey writing and Drew Moss on art.
Yep.
And like, if you ever watched that cartoon, it's a little bit like the writing of it. If you go back and look at it as an adult, it's a little loose. But what these guys have come in and done is taken all the bones of it and actually fleshed it out into a compelling series that even an adult can get a satisfying story out of. They're adding things to the lore that are fascinating. This is a great series worth checking out as well. So those two books are what I would point people toward: Catwoman and Thundercats.
Love that. And I mean, one, Catwoman's a big name, so you got that. And like that long of a time, you are right, is very impressive because these days you don't see that. Also, Thundercats, by the way, doing that, and I've read a little bit of it. Great. And also, they're in the same realm for me as Gargoyles is right now, because Gargoyles is
Yeah,
also doing that thing where they're like, we made this for all ages, but for the adult fans, you're gonna get a little bit more here, and you're gonna know what's going on. Like, this is
that was
awesome.
my previous book. I was on. It is, and for the exact same reason you said, I was on that book for covers for a whole year.
You
That
were.
was
That's
a really, yeah.
yeah.
I had a lot of fun doing that, and as soon as we were done, straight to Thundercats. So working with Dynamite has been just like a gift.
Where do you go from Thundercats? If you do Gargoyles, Thundercats. The only other one would be
I
if you
mean, Thundercats was a
oh,
what's better than that? I have no
that's true.
idea. But Thundercats was a complete surprise. We just finished up Gargoyles. I thought maybe they still have the Disney license. Maybe I can stick around for some more Disney stuff.
Mhm.
But they surprised me. They're like, "Hey, how about Thundercats?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but yeah."
Yeah, you're like, yes,
So,
yes. You mean to tell me
yeah,
this big iconic brand that you may? Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, if I say no, shoot me. Like that's where I'm at. Like you're like this, like what is
yeah.
going on? Why would I say no?
No, who would? I mean, especially if you came of age watching that show, you have a
Yep.
lot of nostalgia for it. And I've gotten to the point where I won't take something. Uh, this is a luxury, but I won't take
Mhm.
something unless I personally love that thing. You know what I
I like
mean?
that.
Like, it's
Yeah.
not worth the time. It's not worth the investment or the money. The money is, be it as it may. Uh, it's not worth it to me unless I love it. It's hard to sit there for the hours it takes to make the cover unless I'm like feeling it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I feel a lot of stuff. I'm like nostalgic for anything in Marvel DC, any 80s stuff. Like, there are a lot of things I really like. Any movie I've just watched and fall in love with, any video game. Like, there are a lot of things that David likes.
Yeah,
But
it makes this easy
uh
for shopping for Christmas, as my family likes to say sometimes with my wife. Let me tell you, everyone's like, and my friends are
yeah,
like, yeah,
right.
it's easy as hell to shop for you because you like everything. I'm like, that's fair. That's fair.
It's a good way to be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've learned that about myself. I no longer have to think too hard. Like, well, I don't know if I really love this. Should I not
Mm,
take it? I've learned that if I feel that way, I shouldn't take it.
I like that. I like that a lot. It's not. It's almost not selling yourself out in a way. You're just like, yeah, I don't want to sell myself out. You're like, I important. You're recognizing your time. You're recognizing your talent. You're recognizing your energy in yourself. Like you're recognizing all of that, and that's really cool.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of tying it into too, because like I said, it's near the end of the episode. Social media, we mentioned it before. Where can people give you a follow at? So that way you can all
Mm.
can boost everything up and stuff.
Thanks. Yeah, I fortunately I'm really easy to find all over social media. Whatever platform you're on,
Mhm.
I'm just at David Nakayama.
That's
Easy
fair.
as that.
Yeah, that's fair. Simple enough. Simple enough. Well, David, thank you for coming on the show, man. This has been a blast to have you on here. If people don't get anything from
Great
this
talk.
episode, they're a fool.
Well, I hope it was useful. I'm really glad we got such a wide ranging and deep conversation about art. I can tell you are a fellow creative yourself, and these conversations only happen when that's true. So
Thank you, man.
good to talk with you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course, of course. You take care. I'll email you everything too when the episode's out, but you take care, okay?
Perfect. Good talking with you. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Adios.